My name is Nick, and welcome to my channel, where I like to talk about scary stuff. No One Gets Out Alive is the latest Netflix horror film starring Christina Rodlow as Ambar, an immigrant from Mexico in Cleveland, Ohio. She desperately rents a room at a sketchy boarding house and immediately regrets it. Haunted by her past and a house full of ghosts, Ambar tries to escape as she comes to understand why no one gets out alive. This is an adaptation of Adam Neville's book of the same name. He's the author behind The Ritual, another adaptation on Netflix that a lot of horror fans love, excluding me, but we're not going to linger on it. I really wanted to give this movie a chance, so I actually listened to the audiobook a couple of weeks ago, all 17 hours of it, and didn't really care for it. Did not like that book. It was a complete waste of time. If you have not read it, maybe just continue living your life. It is not often that I get to say this, but just watch the movie instead. This is a great example of adapting source material and repurposing the bones of a story into something that works for a different format, an often difficult transition we've seen in other book-to-screen adaptations. Not to do a full review of the book, but in it you have this poor woman living in London who rents a room in a boarding house where a bunch of immigrant women live, and she thinks it's kind of haunted, and she tries to get out of there before she stumbles upon some messed up stuff. And you could say the same about the movie, but I think this is such a great, again, example of an adaptation because this smooths out a lot of the problems in the book, namely the pacing, and it fixes the problem of the overall bloated story within the novel, and it condenses it into a brisk and easy 87-minute runtime of a film that I think is perfect. Amber is easily a much more compelling protagonist in the film because she has a real backstory now, and there are secrets we learn about her as the film plays out. There are so many more layers to her character than in the source material, and that makes her a much more interesting character to follow, especially once things get crazy. Christina Rodlow gets all the credit because she easily carries this film. She adds such depth to the character and makes her not just understandable but believable, which is very important when your movie is giving you basic ass dream sequences. But is this a typical haunted house movie, you may ask? Because it is a movie with supernatural horror, I feel like recuse myself in a way. I have to openly state that supernatural horror isn't always for me. Not that I dislike it, just isn't always for me. If you're asking if the movie is scary, no, I wouldn't say that the movie is scary, but as someone who is done with ghosts for the moment, I have to say, I really liked the way the ghosts were used in this movie. They were creepy, they were effective, and they weren't just constantly popping out at you. They were often in the background, at a distance, in shadow, but very clearly visible, and then they'd be gone. But not in a, jump scare kind of gone. I really liked it, especially some moments where we see flashes of movement. Again, very effective. I like these ghosts. And I want to talk about the social commentary in this movie because I am constantly seeing people on the internet talk about how there shouldn't be social commentary in their horror films because, movies made for the public belong to these individuals, as if social commentary hasn't been, embedded in horror since the beginning of the genre. Not to, get too into it, but I feel like this is a great example of a movie that not necessarily needs that social commentary, but more importantly is so amplified by it. Like I said, I listened to the audiobook and it was okay. There are some things from the book I enjoyed that, some things you could say commentary, that were removed for the film, and I understand why, although I wish they kept them. But still, what they add to it, like I said, they take the bones of the story, and each one of those plot points hits so much harder, and it's so much more interesting to me as a viewer, because as a character, Amber is dealing with so much more, and the way all of these plot points connect together, there's so much emotional weight. There is so much drama going on with her character, again, in an entertaining way, where you're on board with her and you really feel for her as a person before the ghosts start popping out. That's so important to me. And I just have to say again, I'm so impressed by the way that this story was completely transformed in the way that it needed to be in order to work as a film. And it's all the better for it. And personally, I don't really feel like the movie ever stopped to hit me over the head with its message. It was just infused into the writing in a way that just became part of the DNA of the story. It's just, again, it amplified everything. It brought it all up. It didn't do anything to take away from it for me personally. But, you know, people are still gonna bitch because it's the internet. I don't want to say too much, which is why I'm going to keep this short and sweet and spoiler free, but I do want to say that there are other aspects to the film in terms of the horror elements, in terms of threats and villains. The ghosts, they're just the appetizers, okay? We get a full main course, and then honestly we get a shit ton of dessert. And my biggest problem with the movie, and same with the book to be perfectly honest, is that I was really into the dinner portion of the story, and I could have completely done without all of the dessert. There was just way too much dessert, didn't need anything at all, and they gave it to me anyway. But I have a feeling Netflix was trying to make something for fans of The Ritual, since obviously it was a huge hit on the streaming service. So I wonder how fans of the movie The Ritual, how they're going to feel about this one. You let me know in the comments. As for the concept, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 because this is not your average haunted house story. It has a strong heroine, interesting villains, and a decent exploration of what it's like to not be rich and comfortable in the US. All things I appreciate. For the execution, I'm also going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. I gotta say, for the most part, the film was just so well done on a technical level. The production of the house was gorgeous. The cinematography was dark yet beautiful. All of the actors, I feel like even though there's such focus on Christina Rodlow, everyone got to shine in their small moments. So much of this was just very well executed. But I cannot help but ding it for some bad third act CGI, again with that dessert that I just really didn't like. They made it way too sweet. It was way too sweet, this dessert, and I mostly blame Netflix for, skimping on the budget where they shouldn't have, because there's a part of this movie that just looks real bad when it needs to look real good, and it's disappointing. And for the entertainment value, I'm gonna give it a 2.5 out of 5. Not to say that it's close to boring. Again, it's short and brisk, and I really appreciate that. But as I was watching, and because I was familiar with the source material, I feel like I was checking off boxes more than becoming immersed in the story, and I think that's on me personally. But again, it's a haunted house movie that doesn't really give me much of the stuff that I really wanted out of it. So it's not one that I see myself returning to anytime soon. But at the same time, for the streaming movie of the week on Netflix, it's pretty damn solid. As for my personal grade, I'm gonna give No One Gets Out Alive a 3 out of 5. What did you guys think of this movie? Netflix is absolutely spoiling us this Halloween season, so I'm hoping this doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Even though I'm not like in love with it, I still feel like it's worth a watch, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. And if you really happen to like this movie, and if you want to do some spoiler talk, if you'd like me to do like a book versus movie spoiler breakdown, hit that like button hard to let me know. And also, speaking of adaptations coming to Netflix with really good titles, you have got to keep your eyes out for There's Someone Inside Your House. Another one I listened to the audiobook for. Oh my god, I loved the audiobook. It's a young adult, like, fiction, but I don't care. It's like a 90s style teen scream slasher, but very updated and new. It was so good. I'm so looking forward to the movie. Maybe the movie will suck. I don't know. We'll talk about it soon. So be subscribed, have those notifications turned on, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, especially if you made it to the end. You get the extra special thank you. And if you're not already, feel free to follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd for more movie recommendations. That's it for this video, but I won't stop you from watching another.